I'm Bill DeFoi, and welcome to Destination Unknown with my co-host, Michelle Hubbard. And welcome back, Michelle.
Well, thank you very much. Welcome back to my home.
Well, thank you very much. This is really a great setting. And today we've got our GPS out, but we have no idea where we're going because we're going to be talking about what is the unknown.
What is the unknown? When I very first came up with my tagline, Travel Guide in the Unknown, I was at this big business seminar and I thought I'd be really brave and throw mine out to the crowd. So I said, Travel Guide in the Unknown. And I heard, oh, yeah. And the lady that was moderating says, see, now everyone knows what that means. That's a great tagline. And recently I've been hearing, well, what does the unknown mean? And what does it mean to you? And for me, it's for the last several years meant leaving my known life in Hawaii and moving over here. But for everybody, they have their own version of the unknown too. And yet it has all similar aspects of feeling scared when you're in it and a big change. So those are two qualities that I think the unknown has.
Well, and you bring up a very good point. I mean, even in simple things, I remember years ago when I was working full time, the boss would say, come into the office, I need to talk to you for a minute. And all of a sudden you have that, and it could have been good news, it could have been not so good news, but you never knew. And you always walked in with a little bit of trepidation, maybe a little expectation, and certainly some hesitation.
Right. Yeah. This morning I gave a talk for my Optimist group, and I knew what I was going to talk about, and I had my handout that I was going to be referring to, and I was still terrified because I didn't know if they liked me. I didn't know if they were understanding what I was saying and the way I was saying it. I didn't know if I was doing a good job. So these little pieces of unknown can also feel as big as the huge big leap into the unknown. I think that's an interesting quality of the unknown.
Well, in your particular case this morning, as you address this group, and with myself having been in a part of broadcasting where you're out there in front either of a microphone or a camera in this case, you always wonder what is the perception of people on the other end. And I know that I've been very critical as I've gone back over the course of time and have listened or have watched videotapes or audio tapes, have listened to those, and you become very critical of yourself. So my question is are we our own worst enemies?
Well, yes, we are.
Well, that's a good way of putting it. Thank you very much. No, go ahead.
Yeah, we are, of course. Yeah, we're hard on ourselves. And in this situation that is calling us maybe to be bigger than we've ever been before, or calling us to be something different than we've ever been before, or is asking us to change, the only thing that becomes familiar sometimes is the harshness that we've kept with us throughout our whole life. And so we'll repeat that story of not good enough. Or we'll repeat those precautionary little personas of, don't do this, don't get too big, don't say this that way, you've got to say it more nicely to protect us. And they're protecting us, but they're also hiding us.
Well, and it could stem from people in our past that have inserted the idea into our brains, into our gray matter, you'll never amount to anything, or you're no good at fill in the blank.
Absolutely. As these innocent little beings who were very, very young, we learned certain ways to protect ourselves and live in this environment where the people who sometimes seemed a little bit nuts were also the ones that were feeding us. So we kind of made up our own rules for, okay, this is how we're going to either be unnoticed, or we're going to make them laugh and then they'll like us, or, these little rules for what's going to get us accepted and able to stay here as peacefully as we were able to create.
You bring up an interesting point about laughter and humor. And I tend to use a lot of humor, as you know.
Oh, you're very mischievous, yes.
Yes, I'm very mischievous. And I'll throw in humor when you least expect it. And I don't know if there's a subconscious thing behind all of that or not, but that's been a coping mechanism that I have used since I was knee-high to a grasshopper.
Yeah, we have our mechanisms that help us to cope, and yay us, and we can change them. And do we want to? That's for us to decide, but sometimes, yeah, it's a good thing to change them. One thing that I found, no matter what my unknown is, I think of it as the North Star is, what do I want? And if I can come back to what in my heart is pushing me to make this move, is calling me, is drawing me to it, then I can think, okay, this is worth feeling scared about. This is worth changing for. This is worth being in this space that isn't really comfortable. But gosh, there's so much potential here.
Well, I go back to the days, years and years ago, I took flying lessons.
Oh.
And one of the things about taking flying lessons, obviously you're doing two things. You're overcoming two objectives. You're overcoming the law of gravity and perhaps in some cases the law of common sense. But in that being said, I did the lessons because I was always fascinated by it, wondered how it worked. I was able to get involved with it and found that I had a lot of fun. But getting behind the controls of an airplane, excuse me, are a lot different, similar but different than you would behind a car or any other kind of a vehicle that you might drive on the ground.
Total different animal, I would think. And gosh, what a feeling. Talk about the unknown, the open space of the sky. What a feeling that must be to be kind of controlling that.
Well, not only did I do a traditional fixed wing, took one lesson in a helicopter, but I took a few lessons in an ultralight where you have no cockpit. I mean, you're out literally in the open.
Wow. And that's what it feels like in the unknown, too, sometimes. We say yes to something when we agree to travel in the unknown that's asking us to, one finger at a time, release our grip on a part of ourselves that maybe we won't say we love them, but gosh, they're pretty familiar, and go into this unknown. And that big leap is the biggest leap of faith we'll ever make. To say, I don't know anything about this other than I feel a yes in my heart, and it's calling me, it's drawing me. I'm looking at the spotlight. It's like that kind of a pull from something that's really bright and shiny and bigger.
Well, there's an analogy to say the biggest step we can make. Let's say that you're out in a boat and you're surrounded by water. And the biggest challenge sometimes is not sitting in the boat, but getting out of the boat to get into the water to get to whatever you're going to.
Well, and the biggest challenge may actually be stepping into the boat. Just to be in a boat that's all wobbly in the water. Because we lose our balance when we lose our identity, our way of thinking of ourselves usually. It is a whole other way of seeing ourselves. And it's a better way. I like to think of it, and this may be a little bit too spiritual for some people, but I think that when we agree to step into the unknown, where we're really stepping into is our soul. And we're just going a little bit deeper into this place of ourselves that's invisible, connected to infinity, and also our source. So there is no more lovingly held space, and yet because it is a space that isn't human, it's also very unfamiliar to us. Mm-hmm. But gosh, what an exciting journey.
Yes. Well, and again, you have these kind of experiences when you step out of your comfort zone, your bubble, as it were.
Yeah.
Then it can be not only uncomfortable, maybe a little bit risky. Not risky, but risky.
Well, if you want to have some fun.
Well, I suppose, but you know what I'm saying is it can be a little bit on the daunting side.
Absolutely, and that is why the tools that helped me and that I used as my GPS and offer to help other people with include facing fear. Because there are ways to do it, and that I know at least worked for me, and are working for people that I work with in sales teams, as individuals going through, like my unknown was, going through a divorce at a later stage in life. And so we don't have to go through it all alone, and we don't have to just absolutely feel terrified every step of the way either.
And in the case of a divorce, I mean, you've been through one, I've been through one, and you never know what's on the other side, because your expectation was, I'm going to be with this individual, and until the end of life. And when that doesn't happen, it's like part of the identity is gone. Plus, you don't know what's going to happen after the two of you split.
You don't. And here's another aspect that you bring up of the unknown, is the myth of arrival. It isn't like you go through this unknown and you come to a known that lasts for the rest of your life. You're just coming to a landing place until your next unknown. So at first, how would I ever go through this divorce process was my unknown. Now my unknown is, how do I be single? When I was single many years ago, there were no computers. People didn't meet online or through dating. I was young, thin, free, single, so it was nothing to meet opposite sex.
So you're still young, single, and very thin, so I don't understand
Thank you for seeing me that way, and that is not how a lot of others see me, including, of course, most particularly myself, but it's very different, and I have not figured out quite how to navigate being single and meeting other people yet, except that I'm finding friendship is really important. And you are someone who is teaching me how to be friends with a man, because that's a lesson that I didn't really learn all that well when I was younger. And I'm appreciating that where I am now and who I'm attracting into my life now is allowing me to have friendships where I didn't before.
Well, I think, first of all, friendships are really a key foundation to establishing any kind of shall we say, a romantic or an involved relationship. Because if you don't have the friendship, everything else is fluff.
Right. And when I was younger, the fluff just seemed like so much fun, and that made it more important. Now the fluff seems very not enough. The substance, like what you're describing, is what's important. And I'm curious about how that's going to happen, because what little I've tried online dating, I have to say it does not work for me. At this moment, I'm not feeling any sort of a yes, a calling, this is how I'm going to try and meet people.
And, online dating, it also has its drawbacks, because when it first was rolled out, it's an alternative to the lovelorn columns that you would find in the back of newspapers, some of the national tattletale rags, that kind of thing. And so it became an alternative, and all of a sudden it's become a very niche industry, because you have singles for this, singles for that, singles for another thing. And so, but you also have that predatory side of that equation. And so you will find people that are really not all that nice. And so I think the healthiest way is perhaps, again, not through online dating, but through friendships.
Friendships, yeah. And I know people that's how they make their friends too. So maybe in a way, this online dating for me is a scary unknown that I'm telling myself stories about. And when I'm really sure about what I want in someone else and who I am, then I'll be able to quickly eliminate the ones that don't fit in line with that. I have to say that there's a time component to this also, in that I don't feel like I want to go through the sorting process right now. I've got too many other interests that are more important.
For people in that situation, if you get involved, you had mentioned at the top of the program the Optimist Club, which is a real vibrant and healthy organization that, I've also, have kind of looked in, through the window to see what's going on. and it's a very vibrant organization, and it's a great networking tool. Plus, you're dealing with other women that can be not only a support friendship-wise, but emotional. And there's, I think, a component where women can really connect solidly with other women.
Absolutely. It's a great club. And one of the aspects to making your journey in the unknown friendly is you don't have to do it all by yourself. And whether your friendship is with people you already know or is with a new friend, male or female, ask them to accompany you. Let them know what your request for support might be. You know, today I'm feeling sad and I want someone I can cry all over. Do you want to be that person? No. Thank you for telling me the truth. Next, do you want to be that person? Okay, here I come. Wah, wah, wah.
Right.
But people know people. And so even though we have this thing called the internet and it clicks like this to make all sorts of connections, you know, all it takes is one person introducing us to the next person who's the absolutely right and perfect step for whatever direction in our unknown we're going.
Well, again, you can have, in an internet dating situation, you can have one bad apple, you know, sit there and fester and rot, and they will infect others that they come in contact with.
Back to not wanting to do online dating.
So I bring that up because, you know.
Because you're hungry?
Well, that too, but that's another story. But seriously, when it comes to building relationships, I think the healthiest friendships are based on having a good friendship as the solid foundation. I remember Mom and Dad years ago. Dad would say, "You know who my best friend is?" And it would be my mom.
Oh, that is so sweet.
And the reverse was true.
Wow.
My best friend for my mom was my dad.
That is so sweet. Yeah. Yes, and you need to be careful of how you define best friend. I thought I was marrying my best friend, and it turned out best friends wouldn't have acted some of those ways. So you learn lessons, you know, when you think this unknown, it's a place that's got all sorts of kicks for you at all sorts of moments in it.
Well, I tell you, there's a great movie out there, and it was produced by Gary Marshall. And Gary Marshall, you might remember, he was the creator of Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley, and his brother Peter hosted the Hollywood Squares. Anyway, he did a movie several years ago called Valentines Day. And in the movie, you have the character played by Ashton Kutcher ask an employee of his, played by George Lopez, what makes your marriage so successful? Because he had just gotten engaged to this gal that really didn't want to be engaged to him in the long run. And he said, and George Lopez and his character said, "It's simple, bro. I married my best friend." Pure and simple.
So take your best friend, who is your best friend in the moment. It's not like there's only one best friend in our entire life. Sometimes there is, who's a very bestest friend, but it's a world full of people and relationships. And go ahead and invite into your journey into the unknown who will best serve you in that moment.
Well, and good friends don't, in my judgment anyway, and you can offer up your thoughts, but a friend never questions motives or what, you know, let's say that, well, I'm going to go do this and this and this, and I'm all with you, go for it.
Right. Yeah, that's how you know it's a friend. They'll be there with you. And some friends like to do like I have some friends, usually girlfriends, we do shopping. That's what we do. I have a Setabello friend. I have friends who are more spiritual church community friends. You know, none are any worse, better than the other, and it just depends on what's most up with me on who I'll first turn to.
Well, and you know, you can also give back to the community as a source of befriending somebody else. And let me give you an example of somebody I know that's going to get involved with a pastoral care facility out in a hospital in Camarillo. And it's going to be, I think, a marvelous opportunity for this individual to get involved and, perhaps encourage others that they have never met and go into that unknown.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Tomorrow I start volunteering at St. John's, actually Oxnard. I'm going to be at their Oxnard hospital and be in the spiritual care unit. When I was living in Hawaii, I did chaplain work. I was very active in my church as a chaplain and prayer chaplain. And so that's one of the things I've been testing different kinds of waters on how I wanted to do that here. And I'm looking forward to what spiritual care in St. John's Hospital is going to look like tomorrow.
And I'm sure that, you have a gift of communicating with people, and yeah, you're familiar, but it's still unknown because it's going to be different than it was in Hawaii.
It's different than it was in Hawaii. It's a different form of religion than I've ever been involved in. And as a general rule, hospitals are very scary to me. So to be kind of immersed in a hospital, it's all going to be an unknown.
Well, having been through a couple of hospital stays myself, and I won't get into it here, but they can be intimidating. I found it to provide some needed assistance,
Sure.
health-wise. And so I have a whole different perspective because if I'm sent there, it is for a reason.
Well,
and
yeah.
and it's not so I'm being sent there because, we need to do this. It's because the doctors are really wanting to see a positive outcome.
Well, it's an unknown.
It is. All right. Well, that being said, let's put this to a wraps.
Okay.
If people wanted to get more information about the unknown and what you do and who you're about, how can they go about contacting you?
Well, gosh, one of the best ways to find out more about the unknown is to check out our program on our website at hmgb.com. hmgbroadcasting.com. Thank you. I'm looking over at Paul, who is absolutely our true north for all of our heritage media programming. Yeah, hmgbroadcasting.com. And if you go to Destination Unknown, you'll be able to see some of our previous programs, including some of the News Junkies interviews, where we talk about what the unknown is and Destination Unknown and traveling in the unknown. So that's a great place to go look. If you'd like to contact me, my email address is Michelle, Michelle, Hubbard, Hubbard, and then the number 4, the letter U, at gmail.com.
Producer Paul is a great wealth of information.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And I know that he's been teaching you and one of our other hosts a lot about how to make this all connect and work and have you have a vibrant web presence.
Right, and I know you're resisting that.
A little bit, but that's my unknown.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay?
Yeah.
There you go. All right, for Michelle Hubbard, I'm Bill DeFoi. You've been watching Destinations Unknown, a production of the Heritage Media Group.
Mm-hmm.